What's going on, guys? My name is Wade with TechDaily. So unlike every other Note before it, with the new Note 10 this year, Samsung actually released two variations of the device, a standard size and a plus size. Now, depending on your specific smartphone needs, any person could probably make a case for choosing either one, but the differences go beyond just their size, and the differing features and configuration options might be the difference in choosing one over the other for you. In this video, I'm going to talk about all the similarities and differences between the two devices so that you can make the best purchase decision when it comes to these phones. And if you did end up getting a Note 10 yourself already, let me know which one you went with and why. I'd love to hear about why you chose one over the other. For me personally, I went with the larger Note 10 Plus. I'll tell you that right off the bat. And my goal with this video isn't to try and convince anyone to spend more money or to choose a phone that's way more than they need. It makes no difference to me what you go with, and I have no incentive to sway you one way or another. But let me say that I've seen a lot of people talking about how the Note 10 Plus just makes a lot more sense when it comes to the specs and features and overall value, and that's what I personally believe as well. I'm surprised Samsung did take this route with the Note 10, and I think as I start to go over the differences here, you might come to the same conclusion I did, which is simply that the Note 10 Plus is the true feature-packed Note device this year that we've come to know and love, and that Samsung simply took too much away from the smaller Note 10 for it to make any sense. So first things first, let's talk about the pricing and configuration options. The smaller Note 10 comes in at $949, and with that price tag, you're getting 256 gigabytes of storage. And the Note 10 is a one-size-fits-all device. You can't opt for more storage. The Note 10 Plus retails for $1099, also starting with 256 gigabytes of storage, but if you want more, you can bump that up to 512 gigabytes for $1199. But actually, you don't even have to do that because the Note 10 Plus supports expandable storage via micro SD up to 1 terabyte. The standard Note 10, on the other hand, does not. There's no expandable storage on that phone, and that's the first pretty important difference between these two devices. While you are paying a bit more upfront for the Note 10 Plus, of course, you're obviously getting a significantly better deal when it comes to storage potential. As far as the color options, I know it's not a deciding factor, but the smaller Note 10 comes in white, black, and Oraglow, and you'll find the same choices of the Note 10 Plus with one more exclusive color, Aura Blue. So once again, if you happen to really like the color blue, the Note 10 Plus is your only choice there. Size-wise, the Note 10 comes in at 6.3 inches, and the Note 10 Plus is a 6.8 inch device. You'll likely have to feel these phones out in store to get an idea as to which phone fits best in your hand, but beyond the size, the design and build with both devices are exactly the same. You've got a mostly glass design with metal sides, and just some clarification, Samsung actually slipped up when they announced the Note 10 and mentioned stainless steel as something used on the Note 10 phones. That ended up not being the case at all. No matter which phone you get, aluminum is the metal on the 10 and 10 Plus. You've got that infinity display on both phones too. The screen curves just slightly to the edges, and overall it's just a very sharp design that's a slight refresh from last year. The displays are both AMOLED panels, but once again, you're getting pretty different screens that definitely favor the Note 10 Plus. The 6.3 inch screen on the smaller Note 10 is a full HD Plus panel with a resolution of 1080 by 2280, while the larger Note 10 Plus is a quad HD Plus screen at a resolution of 1440 by 3040. Those differences translate to 401 pixels per inch on the Note 10 and 498 pixels per inch on the Note 10 Plus. And I have to say, I'm really surprised by Samsung's decision to drop a 1080p display in their flagship of flagships. The standard Note 10's display is not only lower resolution than the S10 and S10 Plus, but it's also a downgrade from last year's Note 9. You can argue all you want as to whether or not a person could spot the difference between 1080 and 1440, but the important thing here is simply the fact that Samsung decided to do this at all. One other thing to note, both displays do support HDR10 Plus, and while we were all hoping and maybe even expecting Samsung to go with a higher refresh rate 90Hz display, that did not happen with either of these phones. Underneath the screens, both phones have an in-display fingerprint reader, and you can unlock the phones in other ways as well, such as facial recognition, so no difference or limitations there. But inside these phones, you will find a few things that differentiate one from the other that once again might sway you a certain way. The CPUs and GPUs for the Note 10 and Note 10 Plus are the same, so no worries there. However, you'll be getting 8GB of RAM with the Note 10 and 12GB of RAM with the Note 10 Plus. Now, I know a lot of people would struggle to utilize 12 gigs of RAM and probably 8 gigs too, but for power users, people who enjoy gaming, multitasking, and just getting the most out of their phone and sort of future-proofing their devices, the Note 10 Plus is the obvious choice. You may not notice the performance difference in everyday use, but in the years to come, as apps and software get more intensive, and as the phone itself ages, having 33% more RAM might allow you to keep that phone quite a bit longer. There's also a bit of a difference in battery capacity. 3500 mAh battery on the Note 10 and a larger 4300 mAh battery on the Note 10 Plus. Now, obviously, the Note 10 Plus has a bigger, higher resolution display and more RAM, which might entice you to push the phone harder, and it ultimately all means that the phone will be powering through that juice more, but you can still usually expect slightly better battery life with the larger battery on the Note 10 Plus. As far as charging the phones up, they both do get a 25-watt fast charger in the box, but the larger Note 10 now also supports Samsung's new super fast 45-watt charger. You have to buy this adapter separately, and it certainly isn't cheap. I think right now it retails for about $50, but with the Note 10 Plus, you could potentially go from 0 to 100% in under an hour when using that new 45-watt charger. On the topic of that USB-C port on the bottom, Samsung has finally dropped the headphone jack on both the Note 10 and Note 10 Plus, and this has definitely got a lot of people upset. At a bare minimum, I guess I would have liked to see the headphone jack on the Note 10 Plus at least, but Samsung claimed it needed the space inside the phone, and the headphone jack is no more on the Note line. Given that this technically should be the most feature-packed Samsung device, I'm not sure you're getting the complete package without the headphone jack. However, because this is the Note line, Samsung continues to make improvements to the S Pen, of course, and you're getting all the same new features here no matter what device you go with. Some of the improvements include handwriting to text translations, searchable notes, and air gestures, which allow you to move the S Pen around at a distance and control certain apps, which may or may not be useful, we'll have to see about that, and a few other sort of minor improvements to the software and hardware of the S Pen. Finally, let's talk cameras, because once again, you're going to see some big differences in what you get with these two phones. Now, both devices have a triple lens setup. There's a 12 megapixel variable aperture standard lens, a 12 megapixel f2.1 telephoto lens, and a 16 megapixel f2.2 ultra wide lens. But on the larger Note 10 Plus, you also get a new TOF or time of flight camera and depth sensor. This setup is what Samsung calls its depth vision camera, and it's going to help with portrait pictures and bokeh effects. Now, there aren't any additional features on the Note 10 Plus from the depth vision camera. You still get AR doodle and video bokeh effects and that cool zooming mic feature that lets you listen in on other people's conversations with the regular Note 10. But overall, with the Note 10 Plus and that depth vision camera, you should see better camera performance in certain situations, particularly with those depth of field shots, portrait modes, and low light images too. And finally, up front, both phones have the same single lens selfie camera, which is a 10 megapixel f2.2 shooter. So unlike what we saw earlier in the year on the S10 Plus, you aren't getting any better of a front-facing camera if you go with the Note 10 Plus. As far as everything else, both the Note 10 and Note 10 Plus have the same speaker and microphone setups and the same button placement. They both pack the power share feature we saw on the S line that lets you charge other devices wirelessly, and obviously the same software features and Samsung One UI interface. So with all the differences and similarities between these two phones, the biggest question, I think, is which phone offers more value, more bang for your buck? And the way I see it is like this. With the Note 10 Plus, you're getting a bigger, better display, more storage options, more RAM, a bigger battery, the potential for faster charging, and better camera hardware. All that for $150 more, or about 15%. To me, all those extra options and features make the Note 10 Plus way more than just 15% better, and I think it easily justifies the increase in price. And even beyond that, I'm actually not so confident that the standard Note 10 is a substantial upgrade over last year's Note 9. Obviously, that's opening up an entirely new debate, but jumping from the Note 9 to the Note 10 Plus might make much more sense. All in all, I think the choice is clear, but you might disagree with me, and that's totally okay. If you do, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments down below. Also, let me know if I happen to miss any big differences between these two phones. I certainly tried my best to hit them all, but I could have overlooked something for sure. But hopefully you guys did enjoy this video. Let me know what you think of the Note 10 in the comments down below, of course. Be sure to follow TechDaily on Twitter and subscribe to the TechDaily YouTube channel if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys later.